We all have a story, and part of therapy is, look, just because someone told you that, or you heard that, or you believed that, it doesn't have to be like, we're told that our fertility falls off a cliff when we're 35. If you go for an X-ray in the UK, on the form it says, this is client between the age of 13 and 52. If so, make sure they're not pregnant. So it can't fall off a cliff at 35 if you have that written on an X-ray form.
I know that you were personally told that you won't be able to conceive, and you didn't even have your periods for a long time.
I could never have children. At 17, I was told I would never be able to get pregnant. And if I could get pregnant, I could never carry a baby to full term. And if I did carry a baby to full term, it would have so many things wrong with it. So I was given 3 diagnoses. You can't get pregnant, you can't carry a baby to full term, and if you can, you'll have a deformed baby. And none of that was true. I got pregnant, had a perfect pregnancy, had a perfect baby. And that's when I realized you've got to be very careful what you let in. I mean, doctors are great people, of course they are, but they do sometimes tell you terrible things. When I had cancer, I was so shocked I had cancer because I felt really well. And I said to my doctor, will it come back? And she went, it knows where you live. It has your address. Yes, it will come back. What a terrible thing to tell someone. She literally knocked on the table and said, it has your address. It knows where you live. It will come back. She wasn't a bad doctor. She was very nice, but told me something really terrifying. And if I hadn't understood this, do not let that in, I would have been waiting for it to come back, because my doctor said, well, it has your address. It knows where you live. Yes, it will come back. My sister, also, we had the same cancer at the same time. I asked her doctor, and she said, well, if it does come back, that's the terror time, because when it comes back, then it becomes impossible to fix it, which is also not true. So we have to love and respect and admire doctors, but also think, does this help me to hear this? Is this useful to me at all? Does this benefit? Am I going to let this in? Because I heard a voice in my head when I was told I couldn't get pregnant saying, do not let that in. When I had cancer, I heard the same voice going, don't let that in, because the doctor's going to fix you, but it's up to you what you let in and what you do. And we have so many amazing ways now of healing ourselves alongside medical help. And I think, if you want to survive an illness, get cantankerous, difficult patient written on your note. So what's that for? What does that do? What are the side effects? Do I need that? Don't just blindly go in and go, okay, here I am. Here's my illness. Fix me. Participate in your recovery. Be response-able. Response-able means able to respond.
When you say we should be response-able, when patients come to you, if 2 people have the exact same condition and one wants to get better and is responsible and one is not, how does that affect your work?
Well, my work is never about blaming anyone for anything. It's about looking back. It's about never saying what's wrong with you. It's saying what happened to you. Here we've got somebody with chronic migraines, and we do an amazing thing in our TT called role function purpose, where we go back and have a look at what is the role of the migraines. And I worked with a girl who was having injections in her head. She had terrible, and she said, from the minute I was like 6, I was told, you're going to take over the law firm. You're here, you're an only child. And she said, I never wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a DJ. And my father said, no, we put you through private school and you must take over this business. Then I got migraines, and he began to go, oh, there's no way you can take over this business. I mean, you couldn't even be a waitress. You got chronic migraines. And you see, this is the genie. Your wish is it. So when you say something like, oh God, I don't want that job. I don't want that. The mind will come up with a very effective way of fixing it. So after we did this session and she realized that the migraines came about to help her, to get her out of a situation that she didn't know how to get out of, they went away. And actually I worked with a very young child who also had really bad migraines. And when I said to him, darling, I know this is a silly question, but if the migraines were your friend and they wanted to help me, and he said, well, when Mummy and Daddy shout, I get my headaches, and then I lie on the sofa. Mummy turns off all the lights and it's very quiet, and she calls me her little snake, because you've got to be in a cold, dark room. And she puts the flannel on my head, and they don't shout anymore. So if you look at that, you imagine a little child hearing Mummy and Daddy shout and thinking, I got to stop this. I got to stop them shouting. But a child doesn't know how to, but the mind hears that. You got to stop them shouting. Or debilitating migraines will do that. Parents don't shout when their child is sick, mostly. And so when you track back at, well, what was going on when this happened? What was happening to you? And how did that play out? So role function is looking at the role an illness plays in our life. And it's usually three things. They all begin with P. Mm-hmm. It's to protect you. You think, why would an illness protect me? But imagine if you have Crohn's disease, and now you can't have sex with your partner, you can't go to work, you can't mess up that presentation, you can't fail at your dream because you're sick. And so illnesses often do protect you. They're a big get out of jail card. And also when you're a child, if you're not getting love, the very next best thing is to be sick, because suddenly you think, wow, look at that. I didn't think my mummy loved me, but she's buying all this gluten-free stuff. She's taking me here. I guess I am important and significant. I need to be significant is often met by being ill because everyone's worried about you. So the first one is to protect you. The second one is to prioritize you, to get you a lot of attention. And that certainly happens when you're sick. And the third one is to punish you. But why would my body punish me? But that's very common. I worked with someone who had such severely Crohn's, she couldn't even get off the sofa. Her whole life was so limited by Crohn's. And when we talked about it, she said, you know, I ran off with my best friend's husband. My whole family were horrified. And then, of course, he left me and I got Crohn's. And that was to punish her. And she said, you know, I caused everybody so much pain. I made everyone suffer, my parents, my best friend. And now here am I suffering. I said, but also your 9-year-old daughter is suffering. And, you know, you've spent longer. If you'd murdered someone, you wouldn't have done 25 years. But you've done 25 years with Crohn's because of a mistake you made. When you were 19, at 19, most of us date people that are wrong. I can't think of many 17-year-olds that haven't dated someone unsuitable or kissed the wrong person. I know I did. And she completely got rid of Crohn's in that very session. So protect, punish, prioritize. And even doctors will tell you, I say 70%, Joe Dispenza says 90% of people turning up at A&E have real illnesses, but they're not caused by diseased organs. They're caused by diseased thinking.
What does diseased thinking mean?
Well, let's imagine you have a thought. I'm dreading going to that meeting next week. Or I'm dreading that assessment. I'm dreading the exam. I'd give anything not to go. Your mind is always listening. And that's not a thought. That's not a fleeting thought. That's an instruction to the mind. Get me out of that situation. You know, often we say, well, I'd give anything for a week lying around doing nothing. Then we get a cold and we don't realize the connection. You said to the mind, get me out of it. You said to the mind, I don't want to go to that presentation. And you woke up with diarrhea or flu.
Wow. So every disease is here to play a role, whether protect, punish, or what was the third one?
Prioritize.
Or prioritize.
I wouldn't say every, you know, I say 70%. I like to err on the side of caution. 70% of us turning up at the doctors or the hospital have real illnesses caused by diseased thinking. So there's another 30%. Of course, we have other illnesses that happen for all kinds of reasons. We can't say every illness. Mm-hmm. You know, if you were exposed to asbestos and you got cancer, if you smoked 40 cigarettes saying you got cancer, then we wouldn't say, oh, you thought that. And you've got to be very careful with cancer saying, oh, did you create that? Did you think it? You know, we live in a world of pollution and stress and all kinds of stuff and chemicals and terrible food. So, of course, people are getting sick for a variety of reasons. But if people have an autoimmune disease or tension headaches or irritable bowel, you know, certainly diseases of the gut, which is the second brain, then these are easy to fix. You don't need to go down the route of medication or indeed surgery. But you can do both.
How do they fix it?
Well, you know, I had womb cancer. And so probably wouldn't have, if I'd known now, probably wouldn't have had my womb removed. But I didn't need a womb. I wasn't going to have any more children. So when they said you got womb cancer, we want to remove your womb, I'm like, okay. And it was so easy. It was like I had cancer one day and I didn't have it the next day. But I did participate in it. So just before I had that hysterectomy, which actually for me was so easy. I actually imagined, because someone said to me, oh, you know, when they take it out, some of the cancer cells can spill out is you've got to be careful with these and then travel through your body. That's actually a terrifying thought. Wow, as they take it out, some of the cancer cells are going to spill out and travel around my body and create more cancer. So when they told me that, I imagined my womb like a fortress surrounded, like when I imagined it all wrapped in cling film, and I imagined it all contained. And I would talk to my body a lot and say, you know, every cancer cell is coming out and it's all contained. And so when it was removed, I felt great.
Wow. Do you think our beliefs have the power to make our bodily organs function differently?
Do you know, I met someone 2 years ago who was younger than me, who had Parkinson's. I was so surprised. This poor woman was shaking. And I'd said to her, you know, darling, you're very young to have Parkinson's. And I noticed she said something. She said all the time, where's my carer? What time's my carer arriving? Mm-hmm. My night carer, my day carer. And I said, let me do a session with you. And so we sat down in a chair like this, and I took her back. And her first memory that she described was she was born, her father was always going to die. So they had her to give the mother something to live for. And her father did die when she was 7. By the time she was 12, she was trying to get her mother a pension. She'd taken over, you know, the mother was devastated. And at 12, she was running the house, getting her mother a pension, sorting everything out. And she said something interesting, no one cares for me. The next scene, she was in her very early 20s. Her husband had left her. She had young children. And she said, I don't know how I'm going to do this. In the final scene, her mother had cancer, came to live with her. And she said all the time, I can't do this myself. I'm caring for everybody. And I asked her a question. How many times do you think you said from that little girl of 7 to the girl whose mother came to live with cancer, had young children, no money, no husband, no support, I need someone to look after me? She said, I said it every day. Wow. And then she got Parkinson's with an army of carers. Everybody was worried about her. And what was so interesting, I said, you know, you don't need this. You're a strong woman. I was giving her something to say, I'm a strong, independent woman. And so I was doing a couple of things. I was reprogramming her mind from that young girl who needed to be cared for. At 7, at 10, we are dependent. We need to be cared for. So I was looking at the role of the Parkinson's, which was very much to be cared for. She needed to be cared for. And so then it's a bit like you interpret, and try to investigate why she would get Parkinson's so young. Interpret the scenes and then interrupt the belief. That was then. Makes perfect sense, but you don't need it now. You're a strong woman. Mm-hmm. You've got beautiful grown-up children and you've got a great life. And at the end of the session, I was also doing this commanding. I do this thing called command therapy, commanding the body to fix it. She picked up a glass of water and drank it. She painted her nails. She went out and pruned some roses. And when her son came in, because she was staying with him, and she said, don't make a fuss. I'm a strong, independent woman. And then the next day she went back to her own house. And she's lived her life normally ever since, which was an extraordinary thing. But she was young. When I met her and heard her talk about her carers, something in my brain said, she's unconsciously created this. Nobody would create that consciously.
So you decode the role the disease is playing in the person's life.
Decode and rewire. That's exactly it.
Decode and rewire. Yeah. We did a focus group prior to our interview with 80 different women between 25 to 40 about infertility. Yeah. And over 80% of them have been through over 5 rounds of failed IVF. Mm. And they're all suffering. And as a woman, as soon as you hit 25, all you hear from your gynecologist is that, your egg count is going down, sure. Your chance of getting, your fertility is going down, your chance of getting pregnant is going down, which kind of like puts you in this race of, oh my God, first of all, let me find my soulmate.
You know, one of the rules of the mind is what you expect tends to be realized. If you expect your fertility to decline and you're thinking about it, it's like being pregnant and expecting to have a miscarriage. The statistics go up when you think like that.